After unboxing the kit in the last episode, it's now time to move on to do some preparations to the bodywork and get it into the spray booth. Now, if you haven't seen last episode, then I'm going to mention it quickly again. This kit is temporarily available in my web shop, hsMVY.shop, for pre-order. If you are interested in getting one of these, do head down to the link in the description down below, or just go to hsMVY.shop. You will find this kit and many others, and also tons of tools, paints, etc. for the model car enthusiasts. So with that out of the way, let's get on to the build. So before I could start painting the body, I needed to glue a couple of small pieces on, and I say a couple, I just mean that really tiny extra lip spoiler on the back. I wanted to glue that in place because that simply makes it a ton easier to add the decals onto later, as I don't have to hold it onto some of the tiny feet that aren't really meant for holding the part. So that just makes my life a bit easier. I mentioned in the unboxing video that the Panelines did not really need any scribing, and I just went over them in a bit more detail, but they didn't really need any scribing whatsoever, so I just moved on to sanding the entire body with a 600 grit. Everything was nice and smooth, now grippy. I cleaned it off with some degreaser, moved it into the spray booth, and applied a couple light coats of Mr. Hobby Surfacer. This adheres really nicely to the resin, leaves a super nice and smooth finish, and can be applied in nice and thin coats. It also dries really quickly, so after a couple of minutes you can pretty much already move on to the next step. With a couple coats of primer now applied, I set it aside to cure for a little bit and moved on to unboxing the airbrush, which is the Gallery Mobius TG. This is the 0.5mm version. There also will be a 0.3 available soon, and I'm really keen to check that out because this one is pretty darn fabulous. It comes with a round tip and also a fan tip. In my last build I did go over the fan tip that it simply isn't really for me. I just prefer the round tips, so I switched it out to the round tip. Moved on to all of the detail areas that are hard to reach, easy to forget first, and then onto the rest of the body. Now there were quite a lot of hard to reach, easy to forget spots, and since this is a 0.5mm needle, which is on the bigger side for 1/24th scale models, it is a lot easier and a lot better to cover these areas in detail and lightly go over them in several angles just to get it fully covered instead of just going over the entire body at once. I'm doing this for the panel lines as well, since they are pretty deep and the nozzle is pretty big. It is harder to get in there if you just skim over the entire body, so taking care of those first will make sure that everything is nicely covered and it doesn't leave any uncovered areas deep in the panel lines or those hard to reach, easy to forget spots. So as you can see, there were quite a lot of areas that needed to be covered in a bit more detail than the general gloss over the body. So with that all done, the body is pretty much already all entirely red, but just the areas that I missed will need to be covered too, so that's what I'm going to do now. The first coat is applied, it covers really nice and fast. I let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes in between and then moved on to the second and final coat, which I'm applying a bit heavier. I'm not going to go too in-depth on this one. I'm spraying a bit heavy. The body is made out of resin, so these lacquer paints don't really attack the body at all. If this were to be a plastic kit, go slow, don't go as thick here. Just apply it in 3, maybe even 4 light coats, and be sure to let it dry properly in between, and don't apply it too thick as I'm doing here. But since it's resin, the paint doesn't attack it. It can be applied really nice and thick, and that leaves a super nice and smooth finish, but it also does mean that the paint needs a little bit longer to cure. If you have a dehydrator for food, or specifically one for model cars, then you can leave it in there. That does help. Otherwise, just leave it overnight before you start applying the decals. After the final coat of red was applied, I let it sit overnight to cure and then moved on to applying the decals. Now there are many different decals in this kit for various different liveries, and I decided to go with a sort of custom mixture of the Apex livery and also just going for some of the carbon fiber bits. Now initially I wanted to try the hood in the centerpiece with the body color, but sadly that decal wasn't fully printed and it missed a hole in one of those patches on the side, so I moved on to just using the one with the fully covered hood. Now keep in mind this is a beta version of the kit, pre-production, so not all of the parts are exactly how they should be, so this is probably just one of the decal sheets in a beta version, and the final version should have this all fixed up, so don't worry about it too much. In my case, I wanted to go, like I said, for a custom version. The Apex version does have some gold details on it here and there. I'm not going to be using the entire set of gold decals. I'm just going to go for a gold stripe on the top, and I'm probably also going to try to color match the wheels to this same gold, as I figured that would look cool and also give it a bit of a custom version, which I personally haven't seen before. It also kind of gives me Christmas vibes, but nothing wrong with Christmas here. So after applying all of the decals, all of the stripes, all of the badges that I wanted on there, I let that cure. You can again leave that overnight or for a couple of days, or put it in the food dehydrator just to help it cure a bit quicker. I'm going to go over the decals first with some clear, just a really light mist coat to get a nice grippy surface for the clear on the decals, and also to get them acclimated to each other. Once all of the decals had received their first initial light coat, I moved on to all of the other harder to reach areas and go over the rest of the body as well with a light first tack. Leave that to tack off for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then move on to building up the color, or the clear, a bit thicker to get a nice glossy smooth finish. With the first coat now applied, I let it sit and dry again for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then moved on to the final coat, which is applied a lot thicker. My hand movements are a bit slower. The trigger is pressed all the way through to get the maximum amount of paint through the airbrush, and also to get it nice and smooth on there with a thick layer to get it as glossy as possible. After this final coat had been applied, I set the body aside for a couple of days, and in the meantime I will be moving on to the interior, also the chassis and the other bits, so this can fully cure before I move on to detailing this out further and finishing off the build. Now as far as the interior goes, I'm thinking of just going with a black interior, maybe do the houndstooth on the seats simply because it's a really cool fabric, and also going for a yellow stitching, yellow seat belts, but do please let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. It would be much appreciated. And also don't forget, if you are interested in one of these kits, I do have them temporarily available in the Scale Modeling channel webshop, tsmc.shop. Links will be in the description down below.